Shadows of certainty. Trump's bold claim on Tylenol and the autism enigma. In the hallowed hush of the Oval Office, where the weight of history presses against the polished mahogany desk, President Donald Trump stood on a crisp Monday afternoon, his trademark red tie slicing through the room like a declaration of intent. Flanked by a cadre of health officials, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the newly minted Secretary of Health and Human Services, whose vaccine skeptic firebrand reputation preceded him like a storm cloud, Dr. Marty Makary, the FDA Commissioner with a surgeon's precision, Dr. J. Bhattacharya, the NIH Director whose voice had long echoed in pandemic debates, and Dr. Mehmet Oz, the CMS Administrator, ever the charismatic bridge between medicine and media. Trump leaned into the microphone. His words, delivered with the unyielding confidence that had defined his political odyssey, sliced through the air. The FDA is strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary, such as for fever. It was a moment that rippled outward, from the marbled halls of Washington to the quiet nurseries of America's heartland, igniting a firestorm over one of the most ubiquitous medicines in our medicine cabinets, acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol. Picture a young mother in suburban Ohio, her hand trembling as she reaches for the familiar blue bottle on the bathroom shelf. It's 3 a.m., and a stubborn fever grips her, the kind that comes unbidden in the second trimester, turning her body into a battlefield. For decades, Tylenol has been her ally, the one pain reliever deemed safe amid the minefield of pregnancy restrictions. Ibuprofen, off limits after the first trimester, lest it invite bleeding or harm the baby's fragile heart. Aspirin, a whisper of risk for neural tube defects and low birth weight. Untreated fever, a silent threat, potentially spiking the odds of miscarriage or neural malformations in the womb. In this delicate dance of motherhood, Tylenol has been the steady partner, prescribed and endorsed by obstetricians worldwide. But now, Trump's announcement cast a long shadow. Could this everyday elixir, the one that soothes teething toddlers and eases arthritic grandparents, harbor a darker secret, one linked to autism spectrum disorder (ASD), that enigmatic constellation of developmental challenges affecting 1 in 36 children in the United States? The roots of this revelation, or revelation in quotes, depending on whom you ask, trace back to a peculiar alliance forged in the fires of Trump's second term. RFK Jr., the environmental lawyer turned health crusader, had long been a thorn in the side of Big Pharma, his voice a megaphone for questioning everything from mercury in vaccines to fluoride in water. The man who brought this issue to the forefront of American politics, along with me, Trump boomed, clapping Kennedy on the shoulder with a grin that suggested shared conspiracy. It was Kennedy who had amplified whispers from a handful of studies, observational ones, mostly, peering through the fog of epidemiology, suggesting a correlation between prenatal acetaminophen exposure and heightened autism risk. One 2018 study in the American Journal of Epidemiology, for instance, followed over 2,000 mother-child pairs and found that longer use of the drug during pregnancy correlated with a 20% uptick in ADHD symptoms and subtle behavioral shifts that hinted at ASD. Another, from 2021 in European Psychiatry, echoed the alarm, linking prolonged exposure to a 30% increased odds of autism diagnosis. These weren't ironclad proofs, mind you, correlation, not causation, the mantra of cautious scientists, but in the echo chamber of social media and late-night podcasts, they morphed into gospel. Trump, ever the showman, seized the narrative. "We understood a lot more than a lot of people who studied it," he declared, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of upending orthodoxy. The FDA, under Makary's steady hand, would issue guidance to physicians, notify patients of the very increased risk, urge restraint, and pivot to alternatives where possible. It was a policy pivot dressed as protection, timed perhaps to burnish Trump's image as the outsider championing the overlooked. Yet, as the press corps scribbled furiously, the room buzzed with unspoken tensions. Autism, after all, isn't a monolith forged in a single pill. Experts like Dr. Alice Kuo from UCLA's Fielding School of Public Health have long insisted it's a tapestry woven from genetics, environmental exposures, and the unpredictable alchemy of fetal development, hundreds of genes implicated, from rare mutations to common variants, alongside factors like advanced parental age or prenatal infections. The science on Tylenol and autism is not settled, one pediatric neurologist confided off record, her voice laced with frustration. It's like blaming the rain for the flood when the river's been rising for years. To understand the stakes, rewind to the dawn of the autism epidemic, or what feels like one. In the 1980s, ASD prevalence hovered at 1 in 2,000, today, it's exploded to 1 in 36, per the CDC's latest tally. Parents, gripped by a quiet terror, sift through every choice: the air they breathed, the foods they craved, the medicines they swallowed. Enter acetaminophen, introduced in 1955 as a gentler cousin to aspirin, now a $500 million juggernaut for Johnson & Johnson spin-off Kenvue. It's in everything from cold remedies to sleep aids, a staple for the 60% of pregnant women who report using it at some point. The fear isn't abstract, it's visceral. Imagine Sarah, a composite of countless mothers, staring at her ultrasound in 2018, her son later diagnosed at age 3 with the repetitive hand flapping and sensory overloads that define ASD. Was it the fever reducer I took for that flu? She wonders, her voice cracking in therapy sessions. Stories like hers fuel online forums, where anecdotal threads weave into a narrative of betrayal. Kenvue, predictably, fired back with the ferocity of a cornered titan. In a statement dropped like a gauntlet on Sunday, just ahead of Trump's bombshell, they reaffirmed Tylenol's sanctity. Acetaminophen is the safest pain reliever option for pregnant women as needed throughout their entire pregnancy. They cited over a decade of rigorous research, endorsed by leading medical professionals and global health regulators, insisting no causal link exists. Earlier this month, their scientists huddled with HHS officials in a scientific exchange, pleading the case for nuance. Without it, women face dangerous choices, suffer through conditions like fever that are potentially harmful to both mom and baby, or use riskier alternatives, they warned. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists echoed this caution in preliminary murmurs, stressing that withholding pain relief could do more harm than the hypothetical risk. Yet, in the court of public opinion, Trump's decree landed like a thunderclap. Social media erupted. Hashtag Tylenol truth trended, with influencers parsing studies and parents sharing war stories. One viral thread from a neurodiversity advocate read, "Autism isn't a curse to cure, it's wiring. Stop scaring moms." As the sun dipped low over the White House rose garden that evening, Kennedy lingered, his eyes distant, perhaps replaying the battles that brought him here, from his 2005 Rolling Stone expose on thimerosal to this Tylenol tango. Trump, meanwhile, retreated to Mar-a-Lago's golden glow, already plotting the next move. But in living rooms across the nation, the real drama unfolded. Emily, a first-time mom in Atlanta, scrolled her phone at dawn, her hand hovering over the Tylenol bottle. A low-grade ache pulsed in her temples, but the headlines screamed warning. She texted her doctor, "Is it safe?" The reply came swift, "Talk it through. Fever's no joke either." In that exchange lay the human core of the controversy, not grand policy strokes, but the quiet calculus of care. The announcement wasn't just health policy, it was a mirror to our fractured trust. In an era where science feels like a battlefield, vaccines vilified, masks mandated, origins obscured, Trump's gambit tapped into a primal vein. Parents, exhausted by uncertainty, crave villains, the chemical in the pill, the oversight in the lab. Yet autism defies such simplicity. It's the child who lines up toys with architectural precision, the teen who decodes quantum physics but navigates crowds like a minefield. Causes: a genetic symphony conducted in silence, with environmental notes, perhaps pollutants, perhaps infections, adding discord. Acetaminophen, one instrument in a vast orchestra, its melody muddied by confounding variables like maternal stress or genetic predispositions. Days later, as FDA memos trickled out, the backlash swelled. Pediatricians penned op-eds in the New England Journal of Medicine, decrying the premature alarmism that could deter essential care. Kenvue's stock dipped 2%, a blip in their empire, but the real cost tallied in anxious consultations and unprescribed doses. Advocacy groups like Autism Speaks issued measured statements, urging funding for root cause research over finger-pointing. And Trump, he tweeted a selfie with the team, captioned, "Protecting our babies, America first." The likes poured in, a digital roar from the faithful. In the end, this wasn't merely about a pill. It was about the stories we tell ourselves in the dark hours of parenthood, the what-ifs that haunt every milestone. As Emily finally swallowed the Tylenol, chasing it with a prayer, she joined millions navigating the gray. Trump's words had stirred the pot, forcing a reckoning with science's limits and our endless quest for certainty. Would it save lives, or sow needless fear? Only time, that impartial arbiter, would tell. But for now, in the quiet aftermath, one truth lingered. In the face of the unknown, we reach for what soothes, not just the body, but the soul.